This is Ham College, Episode 7 for July 31st, 2015. Ham College is brought to you by ICOM and the BiDirect D-Star Infrastructure Program, and by hamstudy.org, a great place to study for your amateur license exam. Good evening and welcome to another exciting episode of Ham College.
I'm Tommy.
I'm George, and it's great to be back with you again. We're going to cover some more questions from the technician pool this time around.
Yeah. So what episode number is this?
What episode? This is episode 7 officially. It's actually the 8th episode.
Yeah, we're moving right along.
Yep. You know, we didn't count that first one just to kind of give us a little head start.
Yeah. That's okay. We needed a head start.
We did. You know, whenever we're doing an episode of Ham College, we're trying to stream it live, but we also have a chat room, and there's a bunch of you in there right now. Chat room's only active when we're actually streaming either Ham College or AmateurLogic. It's at AmateurLogic.TV/chat, and we've got a nice little conversation going in there right now.
Yeah, there's a lot of fun in there. If you're on YouTube, and the chat on YouTube, we cannot see that one, so leave that one. Come to the URL that you see on your screen right now and join in on the fun over on the other chat room, the official one.
The official chat room. Well, we got several things we're going to do tonight, but first I'll tell you, maybe we ought to just look at what we did last time, just a quick review of what we talked about last time. One of the things we talked about was diodes. You know, they're kind of necessary.
Pretty useful and
quite useful.
Quite useful. It's in pretty much everything.
Yeah, in pretty much everything. You're right about that. We brought out the oscilloscope.
All right.
And we're going to do that again this time for another demonstration. Now, we're not suggesting that everybody studying for your technician exam goes out and buys an oscilloscope. No, you won't need that to pass the test.
No, absolutely not. And we actually did get some emails about showing the oscilloscope, but some things, that's the only way you're going to be able to visualize what we're trying to show you here. So it's just a tool to be able to demonstrate.
And that's the way it is this week. We want to show you something that we just couldn't show you with an ohm meter or anything else like that.
Yeah, so everybody doesn't have to buy an oscilloscope. You can do like me and come mooch off of someone that already has one.
Well, you can, but you really haven't had to mooch much.
No, I really haven't had any need for it.
It's not something you use a lot. If you got one, great. If you can get one, great. But you absolutely have to have it. Nah, you know,
not for most people.
No. We also talked about series and parallel circuits a little bit. That was actually a carryover from the previous lesson. We had wanted to show and talk about it a little bit, so we did. We showed a little bit and talked about it this time.
That was some
around.
Interesting stuff.
We've always got a history lesson every time we do Ham College. So let's take a look now at ham radio history.
We needed one of those, what do they call it, a stinger? Ham history or whatever.
Yep.
I don't know. We're going to have to come up with something cool
Stingers.
for that. All right, so today we're going to talk about radio waves. That's pretty much the foundation for everything ham radio. So without that, we may as well pick up the telephone. Not your cell phone either.
Yeah, true.
Okay, so by definition, radio waves are electromagnetic radiation having a wavelength between about 0.5 centimeters and 30,000 meters used for the broadcasting of radio and television signals. Radio waves were first predicted by physicist James Clerk Maxwell. Maxwell noticed wave-like properties of light as well as in electricity and in magnetism. He proposed equations that describe light waves and radio waves as waves by electromagnetism that travel in space. These waves are radiated by a charged particle as it undergoes acceleration. In 1887, Heinrich Hertz created an experiment by generating radio waves in his laboratory. Hertzian waves are used to communicate and transfer information today. Frequencies are measured in hertz, megahertz, kilohertz, gigahertz, etc. Radio waves travel at a speed of light. When they pass through an object, they are slowed down. The amount they're slowed down depends on the density of that object. I'm sure you've heard of the wavelength. That's the distance from one peak of the wave to the next peak. The wavelength will be different based on frequency of the wave. Higher frequencies will have a shorter wavelength, and I think we'll see that later.
Okay, so that's the wavelength is measured from the peak of one wave to the peak of the next.
To the peak of the next. And you can see a demonstration there.
Yeah, long waves are farther apart, short waves are closer together.
Right. Once they're generated, electromagnetic or radio waves travel through space directly or can have their path altered by reflection, refraction, diffraction. The intensity of the waves can be diminished because of dispersion, and likewise some of the energy might also be absorbed by various materials. Noise will also diminish the signal. This is called electromagnetic interference and comes from natural sources as well as artificial ones. If the magnitude of the noise is large enough, the signal won't be copyable anymore. The signal-to-noise ratio is a fundamental limit to the range of radio communications. The weaker your signal gets, the closer it gets to the noise level, the harder it's going to be able to hear.
Yeah, you know, really, signal-to-noise ratio is more important than signal strength.
Yeah.
Because you can get by with less signal if you've got less noise.
If you got less noise. So if anybody tells you you're down in the mud, your signal-to-noise ratio is
not too good.
Not good.
Yep. So, yeah, radio waves. We're going to look at those here in just a little bit, and we're going to bring out the scope for that.
All right, some scope action.
And some radio action, too.
Awesome.
We'll actually do some radio this time.
Cool.
To make that happen. These are things you're going to have to study on. That's what our questions are going to be on tonight is radio waves. They're not going to be, well, they're not going to be quite as dull as the rules and regulations questions, but then again, they're going to be a little bit tougher than some other, some other ones.
Yeah, they're going to be a little tougher to reason out. So they're going to take a little bit more effort to study and memorize and actually learn what's going on with some of these.
They certainly are. Well, we're going to be back in just a moment, and I'll tell you what, when we come back, we'll give away something, and then we'll have our little lesson here and talk more about radio waves. ICOM America and ICOM Canada are teaming up to offer ham radio operators some incredible savings. Get a great deal on a D-Star repeater direct from ICOM and help expand D-Star across North America. With the release of the ID51A Plus and ID5100A, more people are getting on the air with D-Star. For a limited time, ICOM is offering a bi-direct D-Star promotion for U.S. and Canadian residents only. Purchase a D-Star repeater through the D-Star Infrastructure Program. Visit ICOM America's website, view current amateur promotions, and buy direct. This promotion is good for a limited time only. Review complete instructions online and call or email in your order today. Visit ICOMAmerica.com/amateur for more information on ICOM's Buy Direct program.
So we want to spring it on them?
Yeah, we want to spring it on them. If you'll be showing them and tell them what we got there,
All
I'm
right.
going to
Well,
send
we've
myself
got this
an email.
stylish ICOM cap and a stylish ICOM Ham Crew t-shirt. You'll be the best looking guy at the Ham Fest, right next to the guy wearing the other best looking guy wearing the AmateurLogic shirts. So anyway, looking good.
hamcollege at AmateurLogic.TV. How does that work?
That works for me. And it's going to be a random drawing, so it doesn't matter if you're the first one
Yeah.
or not.
And there's no tricky questions or anything like that. Just type in that address, hamcollege at AmateurLogic.TV. Put your name and call sign in there so we will know it's you.
Yep.
And if you win, we'll get in touch with you, find out your address and what size of shirt you want.
All right. Good luck to you.
Good luck in the contest. So let's get this set up here and do some radio wave experimenting. This is a 2000 hertz audio signal that we're looking at right here. It's a sine wave. That little flickering you see, and that's just because we're not triggering correctly on it. But you can hear the tone there a little bit.
Yeah. I'm surprised your dogs aren't howling out there.
They could be. We can't hear it because we're deaf from listening to the tone. As Tommy mentioned earlier, you know, to check a wavelength, you'd measure from the top of one waveform to the top of the next one right there. And that would be your wavelength.
The wavelength, yep.
On this scope, you can actually put markers on here, or what they call cursors, that you can mark one spot and then slide it over and mark another spot. And you can actually measure the distance between those two, but it gives it to you in time rather than a wavelength.
Okay, then you could calculate it.
You could calculate it out from that.
So you must have knew. I was actually just about to ask you if you could measure the wavelength with this.
That's funny how that happened, isn't it?
It is.
Now, what happens if we increase the frequency of this tone here? Let's go on up a little bit. You can see the higher we go in frequency, the closer these waves are getting together.
Yeah.
That means the wavelength is getting shorter as frequency increases, which is exactly what we learned earlier. As these get higher, we're not actually picking them up on our little test speaker here very well.
My ears are.
Volume. But we can see they just, as frequency goes up, they just keep getting closer and closer together. Here's 20,000 hertz right here.
Wow, I can't even hear it.
Yep. So that's an audio signal right there. You see, it's a sine wave. So I tell you what, let's look at some RF now. So I'll unhook the audio oscillator. Well, we'll bring out the handy talkie here. I'll have to reset the scope up so that it's looking at the right thing. I got a little rubber duck attached to it there.
You don't see that every day.
No, you don't. As a matter of fact, I think it's probably the first time I've ever done it.
Oh, yeah?
So, yeah. So let's look at some RF now. We've got the handy talkie here on 2 meters. We'll key up. There's RF we're seeing right there on the screen as I get closer to the antenna.
Yeah, you got to get pretty close for it to pick it up.
So it's just like a solid bar though. If we start increasing on the horizontal here on the scope, we'll see that it finally turns into waves. Once I get out as far as I can, you can see the waves there. This looks just like audio, doesn't it?
It sure does.
It's just a much higher frequency and a much shorter wavelength. All right, that's VHF. Let's go up to UHF and just take a look at it. There's a UHF signal right there. We'll have to increase the gain on the scope to be able to see it. You notice there's a lot more waves here. They're a lot closer together.
Yeah, it's a lot weaker.
Yeah. Now the reason for that, this scope is limited to 100 megahertz, which is a good scope. But we're trying to look at 440 megahertz with it, so it's
out of band.
Yeah,
so you're just kind of getting basically it overloading it.
Overloading it. You're getting a little bit in it.
2 meters actually was the same way.
2 meters is actually...
It's out of band as well.
It is, but it can still measure it. And if you notice when I get real close to it, it goes to clipping.
Yeah.
That's just because we're overloading it. But there you go. So essentially, what we've discovered there is an audio waveform and an RF waveform from this handy-talkie look exactly the same.
Yeah, just the wavelength is a little bit different.
The wavelength or frequency is just a little different between the two.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting.
Pretty interesting. Now we didn't look at modulation. We'll look at that one day. We'll talk about modulation.
Yeah, I think that's going to be an upcoming topic for the history lesson, and then we'll probably have a project that goes along with it, I'm sure.
Yep. Well, let's look at one other thing now. You know, we were talking about wavelengths. We've got a chart here that shows, we start here at the bottom, the 160 meter band, 1.8 megahertz. We're going up through all the HF bands up to the 10 meter band. We pick up with VHF, we got the 6 meter band, 2 meters, 222 megahertz, 440.
Yeah, 440, 70 centimeters.
Yep, the 900 megahertz band, the 1240 megahertz band, or 1.2 gigs.
It doesn't list those in meters, but this kind of gets the point across that their approximate wavelength is in meters, right? So it's approximately 160 meters.
Right.
But it's not exact because it's going to be a fraction of that up and down the...
Right. Yeah, everything can't be, all these frequencies can't be 160 meters, but we're identifying it as approximately 160 meters. Now, this is not all the bands that amateurs have. There's actually a band below 160 meters that we received authorization to use here a few years back. It's experimental. I don't remember the frequency of that right off. But also up here on the top, you see we've got 1.2 gigahertz band. We've also got privileges at 2.4 gigahertz.
Yeah.
And I believe some privileges above that.
Yeah. There's we've actually got a lot of spectrum. We need to use that stuff so we don't lose it.
Right. You can get this band chart here from the ICOM America website. There's another band plan you can get as well. That's this one right here comes from the ARRL. Essentially the same information on it, just laid out a little bit differently here. But you can see that down here in the 160 meter band, only extras, advanced, and general class licensees can use that band. The portion there that's in red, then the plan says that we're going to use that for Ridian data. The portion in green says that we're going to use that for phone and images. Well, it just happens 160 meters, you can do any of that. That's the band plan. That's suggested. It's kind of like a gentleman's agreement that that's the modes we're going to operate there. You can see on the 80 meter band, the privileges change a little bit. The extras get a big portion of the 80 meter band there. The advanced get almost as much. The generals, maybe half as much. So that would be a good reason there to upgrade to your extra class license.
It is.
If you're a general, just so you can get that extra band right there, because when conditions get really crowded, the general meter or the general portion of the band during a contest here may be completely full. Down there in the extra portion, you've got a little more room to spread out. Same thing with some of the other bands here. Some of the bands, extra, advanced, and general, get to use the whole band, but some of the other bands, the extras and the advanced, get a little more. Now, you can't get an advanced class license anymore. They quit issuing those some years ago, but there's still people with the advanced license.
Yeah, our buddy Wayne.
Yep. So, you know, that we still have them shown in the band plan here. Now, what is the gentleman's agreement and suggested is that you operate the modes indicated by the colors here. What is not a gentleman's agreement and is FCC rules is what part of that band you can use depending on your class of license.
Yeah.
And you'll notice that where are the technician class? Where do they begin? Well, actually, if you look here on 15 meters, novices and technicians have a little portion here they can do CW. That's indicated by the jagged line there.
Yeah.
There's no novice licenses issued anymore either.
Well, they also have a small slice up here on 80 meters.
For CW, a small slice on 40 meters as well.
Yep.
When you get down here to 10 meters, though, they've got a little space there that they can work Ridian data. And you see the yellow spot, they can work a little bit of single sideband down there too. So technicians can get on HF and talk voice in the 10 meter band.
Just enough to get your feet wet.
Just enough to get your feet wet.
Yep.
On 6 meters here, they've got all the 6 meters.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, all classes of licenses get the whole 6 meter band.
Yeah, so from 50 megahertz on up, I think it's pretty well open to all classes.
All classes have uses of that. So you're in good shape on VHF, UHF, and higher bands. On HF, you've got little areas you can work certain modes there.
These are great resources, so if you're going to get your license or have it, print these out and keep it handy.
Because you want to make sure that you're not operating in the wrong place. These band plans and privileges of frequency you can use are not the same all over the world.
Right.
So just because you hear someone talking on a particular HF frequency and it's a ham doesn't mean you can talk to them. There's frequencies they're using in Europe that we can't use here, and vice versa. So you do need a band plan handy so you can check to be sure that, am I licensed to transmit on this frequency?
Right.
Yeah.
And most of your radios are going to be limited to, no,
they don't have to be.
Yeah, it's going to be the spectrum, the band that we're allowed in the United States, but not on a class of license.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So, good
And
information.
the radio could have possibly been modified before you got it, so it might possibly transmit on frequencies that aren't legal to use.
That's very possible.
Yeah.
Very possible.
Get one of these band charts here. Even if you're not an amateur yet, these would not be too bad to have, because there are going to be some questions asking about where your privileges are that you can operate.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. There are quite a few of them, actually.
Yeah. So we'll be back in just a moment, and we'll pick up with the technician question pool.
It's refreshment time, and our refreshment stand is loaded with good things to eat. There's crispy, crunchy popcorn, and hot, delicious buttered popcorn, lots of candy, and frosty, refreshing cold drinks. Why not treat yourself at the Refreshment Center now?
Are you new to the ham world, or an existing amateur operator who wants to take your license to the next level? Study for your radio license exam at hamstudy.org. Hamstudy.org is a free online learning tool powered by ICOM. It was created by Richard Bateman, KD7BBC, Michael Stufflebeam, KV9G, and Rich Porter, KK6GKE, and it uses a modern web design to enhance the experience of studying for your technician, general, and amateur extra exams. Since 2013, hamstudy.org has helped new and existing hams to familiarize themselves with the question pools, use stats-based flashcards to focus on material they need to learn, and take practice exams to gauge progress. Visit hamstudy.org on your desktop computer or mobile device. Register for a free account at hamstudy.org to access personalized study history and other site features. Prepare for an exam in an intuitive and comprehensive manner. Check out hamstudy.org, powered by ICOM, for free learning tools. Good luck on your next exam.
Monsters do have their place. In the zoo, in your nightmares, in the deep, in your favorite horror movies. But not in your living room, on your TV. Don't let pay TV be the monster in your living room. Pay TV and cable TV companies are seeking the right to charge you for the very programs you now get free. If you want to stop pay TV and save free television, sign the petition in the lobby of this theater. Let your lawmakers know how you feel in the fight against pay TV and cable TV.
So let's get on into the technician question pool now. Some more questions, and as we mentioned earlier, we're going to talk about radio waves this time around.
Yeah.
So you know you're in for an exciting time.
Hey, that's what we're all here for, right?
That is.
If it weren't for radio waves, we wouldn't be here today. We wouldn't. We wouldn't be
on
sitting
this
here
show,
doing this
yeah,
today.
right.
I think
I'm not sure of
I
that.
hope we would exist.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's
Okay.
get on into the first one here.
Moving right along.
Yeah, we'll try to bail out of that as quick as we can. What does the abbreviation RF refer to? It's A, radio frequency signals of all types.
B, the resonant frequency of a tuned circuit.
C, the real frequency transmitted as opposed to the apparent frequency.
D, reflective force in antenna transmission lines.
Well, what do you think?
Well, this one's pretty easy, actually.
Yeah.
I'm going to go with A, just because I know what it is. I mean, that pretty much anybody that's heard anything about radio is kind of. But reflective force in antenna transmission lines, that doesn't really make much sense to me.
No.
I guess that's another way of kind of butchering up SWR, but
Yeah.
that's inaccurate. The real frequency, that's not right.
As opposed to the apparent frequency, what the heck does that mean?
And the
that's
resonant frequency of a tuned circuit, that doesn't make
That's
a lot
not
of
it.
sense either. It's radio frequency signals of all type.
And you're correct.
Fist bump. There we go. We can get by with 2 or 3 of those per
Yep.
show.
We try to limit it, and we're going to try to stay away from the A-no jokes this time around.
Thank you.
Next question.
What is the unit of frequency? A, hertz.
B, Henry,
C, farad.
or D, Tesla? Well, this one is mine.
That's yours. And I actually told you the answer earlier tonight.
I think you did. Yep. And you didn't talk about Tesla, so no, that's not it. But I don't know that there is a unit of measure called Tesla, so
No.
we can rule that out.
But he was an interesting fellow.
Yep. C, farad. Well, that's a measure of capacitance, not of frequency. B, Henry. That's the measure of inductance, but not frequency. So A, Heinrich Hertz.
Yep.
I think that's it. Let's see. Give it
All
up.
right, that's number 2.
Number 2. All right, the next question. If a frequency readout calibrated in megahertz shows a reading of 3.525 megahertz, what would it show if it were calibrated in kilohertz? A, it would show 0.003525 kilohertz.
B, 35.25 kilohertz.
C, 3525 kilohertz.
Or D, 3,525,000 kilohertz.
Okay, this one is yours.
Well, since it's in tens, I mean, it's megahertz, kilohertz, gigahertz. All you got to do is move the decimal. So I'm going to go with C, 3525 kilohertz.
And you would be correct.
Well,
This is
show
the
'em.
third one. Yep.
There we go.
Tommy is correct. You know, you also often hear people talking about HF frequencies. You might be on, say, 3847 kilohertz. That's 3.847 megahertz. If you're looking at your radio, it's going to say 3. Well,
Yeah, but most
get
of the
the
time
point.
they don't say it like that.
No.
I'm on 3862 or whatever,
yeah,
and you just do it.
yeah.
in your head.
Most folks just give it out in kilohertz. I'll often do it in megahertz, though, and just for whatever reason.
Mhm.
You can do it either way, though. But be sure you got your kilohertz or your megahertz right, or there's a big error there.
Yeah, but if you're on the right band, you'll figure it out pretty fast.
Yeah. Well, next question, Tommy.
What term describes the number of times per second that an alternating current reverses direction? A, pulse rate.
B, the speed,
C, wavelength.
or D, the frequency?
And this one would be yours.
Well, you know, that sounds pretty tough. These things are all kind of interrelated here. A, pulse rate. Well, it is, you know, our pulse is going on at a certain rate. C, speed. Well, yeah, it is kind of speed because those pulses are occurring at a certain speed. C, wavelength. Well, yeah, it's kind of wavelength too, because there is wavelength between those pulses, but I think the answer we're looking for there is D. The number of times per second that an alternating current reverses direction. We know we measure that in hertz.
And times per second is the key there. So that
Yep.
tells you how often and how frequent. So,
Yeah, so let's see. It is frequency. Now, frequency can be measured in either hertz or cycles per second. They used to call it cycles per second. You'd see it written as CPS on some really older radios. But it means the same thing, hertz or cycle per second. But frequency.
Way to go.
What type of wave carries radio signals between transmitting and receiving stations? It's A, electromagnetic,
B, electrostatic,
C, surface acoustic,
or D, magnetostrictive.
Magnetorestrictive.
Yeah, I've never even heard of that one before.
I haven't either.
So I'm pretty
not
well going to go ahead and strike that one from the list of possible answers right now then.
Yep, that would be wise.
Okay. Surface acoustic. How's that? I don't even know what that is. So I've never heard of such. B, electrostatic. Honestly, I actually told you the answer to this one earlier too, but
But we want to know the answer to it now.
the answer to it now is A, electromagnetic.
Well, everybody in the chat room is agreeing with you, Tommy. They're all saying that it's A.
This is for a lot of smart people that watch this show.
Well, it is. And they're all correct.
All right, for
And
the
even
last
you.
time tonight, we're going to have to
And
move
I
on to
missed,
something else.
you didn't give me a fist bump a while ago, so you owe me one.
Okay.
All right.
What is the name for the distance a radio wave travels during one complete cycle? A, wave speed.
B, waveform.
C, wavelength.
Or D, wave spread. So what is the name for the distance a radio wave travels during one complete cycle? Seems like we talked about one complete cycle earlier.
It seemed like we just looked at it.
It seems like we did. I can see it in my mind right now. I'm going to say it's waveform, but let's see. Why did I say waveform? I meant wavelength.
I don't know, but it makes me very happy.
I don't know that I've ever missed one before, Tommy.
None. Not that one. I wouldn't have figured you would have missed that one
I
either.
wouldn't either. I don't know why I did. I knew it was wavelength.
But it just happens.
I guess I was thinking I was looking at a waveform. I don't know what I was thinking. But it is wavelength. We can just move on at this point.
Wait, let's discuss this a little bit more.
Well, it's not wave speed. I don't know of that term. Waveform is what we were looking at on a scope. That was a waveform.
The sine wave.
Wavelength is the distance that it travels in one complete cycle.
In wave spread, that's just some junk they made up to put on the
It's kind of like Vegemite, isn't it?
wave spread. Okay, so it's
All right.
wavelength.
All right, so let's get on to the next one here. What are the two components of a radio wave? A, AC and DC.
B, voltage and current.
C, electric and magnetic fields.
D, ionizing and non-ionizing radiation.
And this one's yours.
This one, I'm not totally sure on this one, so I don't think it's going to be D, ionizing and non-ionizing.
Although there is such a thing.
Yeah.
There is, but I mean, I agree with you. I don't think that's it.
Okay, and I don't think it's not A, AC and DC, so it's going to be B or C. And voltage and current, nah, I'm going to go with C, but because voltage and current doesn't make much sense to me. I think it's going to be C.
Well, let's see if you're right here. And you are.
Oh, got lucky because I honestly really didn't know this one. I couldn't remember.
Electric and magnetic fields. That is correct. It's electromagnetic waves.
Cool.
All
So
right.
reasoning them out sometimes does help.
Does help. Sometimes it doesn't if you're just going to say waveform.
Yeah. if you know the answer and you're just going to say the wrong one.
There you go.
But it does happen.
It does happen. Okay, next question here.
How fast does a radio wave travel through free space? A, at the speed of light.
B, at the speed of sound.
C, its speed is inversely proportional to its wavelength.
And D, its speed increases as the frequency increases. And let's see, whose
Is it
turn
my
is
turn or yours? Oh, it's your turn, because I've got
It's
the
my
last
turn.
one.
Okay. Well, people in the chat room are not answering on this one, so this is
No cheating.
This is a pretty well. I was hoping to get a little help in there. How fast does a radio wave travel through free space? It increases speed as the frequency increases. No, the speed of a radio wave really doesn't change with frequency. So D is not right. C, its speed is inversely proportional to its wavelength. No, it doesn't change speed. B, at the speed of sound. No, it's a little faster than that. I think we all know really the answer is A, is at the speed of light, and everybody in the chat room is saying it's A. And it is,
Yeah.
at the speed of light. You know, I really should have looked at that chat room before I made the waveform answer earlier. I could have got away with that. Unfortunately, there's no chat room when you're taking your test.
That's right.
All right, so on with the next one here. How does the wavelength of a radio wave relate to its frequency? A, the wavelength gets longer as the frequency increases.
B, the wavelength gets shorter as the frequency increases.
C, there is no relationship between wavelength and frequency.
Or D, the wavelength depends on the bandwidth of the signal. And this one, the wavelength, how does the wavelength of a radio relate to its frequency? And we saw earlier the sine wave. The higher the frequency it got, the closer the wavelength got, or the shorter it got.
Right.
So we saw that. So I know that the answer A, the wavelength gets longer as it increases. The answer is going to be B, the wavelength gets shorter as the frequency increases. So the higher the frequency, the tighter the sine wave is going to be.
You were looking at the chat room, weren't you?
No, there's no relationship between the wavelength and the frequency. We know that's not true.
Right.
Wavelength depends on the bandwidth. That's not true. So it's B.
Yep. And you're right. The wavelength does get shorter as frequency increases. I think we talked about that just a little bit
Yeah, and we
earlier.
demonstrated it.
And we did. We did demonstrate
Right.
it. What is the formula for converting frequency to approximate wavelength in meters? And it's A, wavelength in meters equals frequency in hertz multiplied by 300.
Wavelength in meters equals the frequency in hertz divided by 300.
That's B.
Yep.
C, wavelength in meters equals frequency in megahertz divided by 300.
Or D, wavelength in meters equals 300 divided by frequency in megahertz. Oh, this, everybody knows this. This is so easy.
Okay. You do need to think about it a little bit. But apparently the guys in the chat room don't need to. They've all been good. Don't look at that.
Too late. What is the formula for converting frequency to approximate wavelength in meters? Frequency. Wavelength in meters equals frequency in hertz multiplied by 300. That's going to give you, I think that's going to give you too high a number. I don't know the answer to this one, so I'm just going to have to try to figure it out.
Well,
I'd see what they say, but I don't, I shouldn't have glanced. I
Yeah.
cheated.
you did cheat.
Yeah. So they're saying D.
Well, just because they said D, you
I'm not
pick a
going to go
different
for
one.
that. I'm not going to go for that. I would have guessed C, but they're saying D.
Yep, they're saying D.
But I
And,
would have guessed C because I think it seems like that would give me about what I would have been expecting.
Well, You weren't the only one who guessed C. We had one other person in the chat.
So let's
room.
see what it is. I'm guessing C. Okay, I'm wrong.
Yeah. Here, I think we can bring a little light onto the situation here. If you look at that, there you go right there. What we were wanting to do is convert frequency to wavelength. So if you look at the bottom, wavelength in meters equals 300 divided by the frequency in megahertz. Or to find the frequency in megahertz, it's 300 divided by the wavelength in meters. Or we can look at it another way. We can draw us out one of these little pyramids right here, or triangles. You put 300 on top, and you put frequency below it on the left and wavelength on the right, and there you got it. Either frequency or wavelength, you can find either one you want by just taking 300 and dividing it. So to figure out the wavelength, divide 300 by the frequency. To figure out the frequency, divide 300 by the wavelength.
Ah.
Now that gives it to you in meters. It's a different value in feet. It is not 300.
Yeah, but meters is what we deal with.
Meters is what we deal with in this particular question. Unless we're out building an antenna, and
Yeah.
I don't have a metric tape measure.
You don't?
No, do you?
I have an iPhone with a converter. You can get a converter.
Is that like a 30-foot iPhone, or is that just a 24-foot one?
So I blew that one.
Yeah, well, we'll give you one. We're tied. It's one miss for each team here tonight.
Mike said even his wife said D. I blew it.
I'm
ashamed.
Hang your head in shame.
I am. I will on the way home.
All right, let's go on to the next question here.
I hated to pick D because everybody gave me the answer.
Yeah.
So, what property of radio waves is often used to identify the different frequency bands? A, the approximate wavelength.
B, the magnetic intensity of waves.
C, the time it takes for waves to travel 1 mile.
Or D, the voltage standing wave ratio of waves. Now, this one is mine. So, the property of radio waves is often used to identify the different frequency bands. Well, I don't know of a VSWR, voltage standing wave ratio, as being used to identify one of the bands
No.
on ham radio. The time it takes for the waves to travel in 1 mile, no, we know that the speed of the waves doesn't really change with frequency. B, the magnetic intensity of the wave. That just wouldn't really have anything to do with it. If it had anything to do with anything, it'd be more about the strength of a wave rather than the frequency of it. So A, the approximate wavelength. We looked at that a little earlier.
We did.
When we looked at these charts right here, we were talking about the approximate wavelengths here, like a 160 meter band at the bottom. That's approximately 160 meters because everything in that band can't be 160 meters.
Right.
It's just approximate. So I'm going to go with A there, the approximate wavelength.
Good call.
That's what everybody in the chat room is saying, so let's see. Bingo.
Chat room's right again.
Chat room's right again. So we got one more question here on radio waves tonight, and Tommy, I'm going to ask you this one.
Okay.
And it is, what is the approximate velocity of a radio wave as it travels through free space? Not page space, free space.
Free space.
Yeah.
A, 3,000 kilometers per second.
Or B, 300 million meters per second.
C, 300,000 miles per hour.
Or D, 186 miles per hour.
Well, I think it would be 186,000 miles per second. I'm going with B, and I only.
So 300 million meters per second.
Mm-hmm.
You got it.
Got it.
And that is correct. You know, if you're trying to think about this in miles, that's going to kind of throw you off.
Yeah, but see, you can do, it's 186,000 miles per second that light travels, so you could actually, you can take a calculator in there. I could have calculated that in the test session.
So you can do more with that iPhone than just measure the length. You can use it for something besides a metric.
Yeah, calculator on there.
Calculator, okay. Well, there you go. Questions from the amateur radio technician pool in the United States dealing with radio waves.
Yeah, fundamental of everything ham radio.
Yep, pretty much. So, Tommy, I think we got through that one. We both lost one for the team in there.
We did. It was painful.
It was kind of painful. It stung a little bit, didn't it?
But it was fun.
It was fun. And the guys over here in the chat room have been doing real good. There's been very few wrong answers in there tonight. Of course, there never really is. So what's going on over in the chat room tonight? Well, they've been discussing some of these questions here, and there was a good bit of discussion on that last one. You know, I think it's because we all learned miles per second when we were in
elementary school or junior high school or whatever it was.
Back in the prehistoric times. I'm sure they learn it in meters today, but
well, not in this country. They don't do much on meters there.
They don't.
I think they may learn the basics, you know, of the metric system, but they just don't do a lot with it.
Let's see. Rim Firefly is asking, George, which Astron power supply for the IC7200? Tommy, can you see the model number on that Astron power supply up there? I can't.
Nope, but it's the 30 amp.
30 amp switching supply. I don't remember the number of it.
I actually like those little MFJ switching supplies actually better
those are
than
pretty
that
nice
one.
Too. I don't know that I like it better.
I do. It's so small, man. It's small. It's got the Anderson power poles already on it.
Tell you what, let me walk up there and get a couple of model numbers.
All right.
And I'll let you relay for me.
They said the switching supplies are the SS models, so maybe that's the newer version of it.
It's an SS30M.
SS30M. That's what we both have.
Yep.
And what's the model number for that little MFJ supply?
MFJ 4230 MVP.
MFJ 4230 MVP is the other one. That's a nice little supply.
That little MFJ is normally running my D-Star rig down there, but I did take it out and use it for HF at field day and it worked fine.
Yeah, oh yeah, it works great.
Ralph is asking, did I solve my Comcast problems? What he was talking about there is Wednesday night, we were all getting online there on Skype to do Ham Nation, and my picture was just horrible. It's like first time ever, and you know, it was really, really bad. Well, I had Comcast come out the next day, and Tommy, you would, I know you've got a soft spot in your heart for people who deal with this issue, but the cable running from the pole out there to the house that my cable TV and my internet are on had been gnawed by squirrels.
So now I know where the squirrels went that used to be in my yard. I haven't seen them lately.
Yep, they're full of coax.
I dropped them off out of the back of my truck over here when I came last week.
They had gnawed in the coax in several spots, and it had happened a long time ago.
Man, those little scoundrels will eat almost anything up. At my other house I had, not far from where I live now, they ate the aluminum fence.
Really?
They chewed up the aluminum fence, the little straps that held the chain link on, the aluminum straps. They ate those things up. Yeah.
Man.
They're pests.
They are. Tommy, I guess that's all I've got for the night.
Yeah, that's it for me too.
So thanks for joining us here on the chat room, and thanks for joining us on the live stream, and for all of those that are watching the recorded download here. Thank you too. We've been hearing from more and more people that have taken their exams recently and are passing.
Yeah, we have, and I appreciate you sharing those stories with us. If you've been watching Ham College and it's helped you to get your ticket, let us know. It's kind of nice to hear, nice to know that what we're doing here is kind of helping out.
Yeah, and I think it's probably more getting folks enthused,
Right?
than because we still. I don't know how far we've actually made it to the question pool. I haven't made.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. When we said up front, don't wait till we get to every question before you go take your test. We're here to
Right.
kind of help you get motivated a little bit and interested in getting your ticket. So
Yeah.
don't forget to send in your entry to win the
Yes.
ICOM swag here, the hat and the T-shirt.
And
And
that
I
is.
guess we'll announce it next month.
Yep, we'll announce the winner. It's Ham College at AmateurLogic.TV. Also, don't forget about our social networks. We've got groups at Facebook and at Google+. And you can follow at AmateurLogic on Twitter. You can also follow at Ham College on Twitter, but at Ham College has just not been saying much, except when there's going to be a show.
Yeah, it's mostly just announcements, but the Amateur Logic one's a little bit more active.
Yeah, that show's been around longer, so most people go to it, but we have both there. Also, you want to check the show notes and see what we talked about? Well, you can go to AmateurLogic.TV/wiki. Our friend Dan, N9LVS, does the wiki for us and does show notes for both of the programs there.
Yeah, thanks to him for doing that, for sure.
Yeah, thanks for that, Dan. Well, thanks for being here with us tonight, everyone. Had a great time as always. And we'll be seeing some of you in Huntsville here in a couple of weeks.
Yeah,
Or is it 3
it's
weeks,
going to be
maybe?
kind of a little bit special event this time.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're in the area, you definitely want to come out there. There's some things that are going to be going on that can't really say a lot about right now,
Yeah.
but you're not going to want to miss it. It's going to be worth the trip for sure.
Yeah, it will be. It will be. 73.
73.
Uh, 220, 440 megahertz.
That's 70 centimeters.
Yep.
What's 220?
Is that
1.2?
no?
No, 70.
Isn't that 23 centimeters? I don't know.
Okay, let's start over at the
Yeah.
bottom again.
Good thinking.